ABC has now been added to firedforfreedom.com, the boycott list. You guys ready to boycott? Because we need to boycott.
All right, it is 20 minutes after the top of the hour. ABC News pulling Jimmy Kimmel live off the air indefinitely over the late-night host comments on the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
That's right. Ty Power joins us with the latest on that. Good morning, Ty.
Good morning to all three of you. The shakeup comes as Jimmy Kimmel continued to reference Charlie Kirk and the alleged gunman this week during his late-night monologues. It all started with him calling out President Trump just a day after the assassination. Watch.
With all these terrible things happening, you would think that our president will at least make an attempt to bring us together, but he didn't. He had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
After the comedian's contentious remarks about the president on September 11th and then the MAGA base on September 15th, as you heard, Kimmel continued again on Tuesday, stating, quote, many in MAGA land are working very hard to capitalize on the murder of Charlie Kirk. The FCC warning Disney there would be action taken against his comments, and then ABC pulled him off the air indefinitely shortly thereafter. Just before ABC's announcement, the president of one of the country's largest TV stations said it would stop airing Kimmel's show, calling the host's comments offensive and insensitive, and that they don't represent the values of the communities in which we are located. They're going to replace programming in its ABC-affiliated markets.
Developing. But let's back up and look at what Kimmel actually said on the program that has caused controversy. This is from Monday night in his Monday evening monologue. Kimmel suggested that the alleged killer of Charlie Kirk might have been a pro-Trump Republican. He said, quote, the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. He said in between the finger pointing, there was grieving. Kimmel was expressing what we've heard some other liberals say in recent days, that the motives are unclear and that maybe the suspect in this case was a Republican or was some sort of far-right fringe figure.
And that right there by CNN is part of the reason why things have unfolded the way they have currently up until this point. Here's what actually happened. The initial narrative that was pushed by some outlets was that the shooter was a hardcore MAGA supporter. But the problem is they didn't have any evidence to actually back up this claim. No investigative reporting, no actual journalism, just speculation dressed up as facts. The details that came out later told a different story. This individual was living with a transgender roommate and involved in a relationship. That's an important piece of context, and it completely changes how the situation is framed. Yet instead of correcting the record, some voices in the mainstream media chose to double down. And then there's Jimmy Kimmel. He had this information, but chose to still lean into the original narrative. And so eventually, Nexstar Media Group stepped in and issued a statement. And when it gets down to that point, it's less about politics and it's more about protecting the credibility, protecting advertisers, and protecting your bottom line, which is your profits. And so Nexstar released this statement saying this on September 17th. Today announced that the company's own and partner television stations affiliated with the ABC television network will preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live for the foreseeable future, beginning with tonight's show. Nexstar strongly objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the killing of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other programming in its ABC-affiliated markets. Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our nation's political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located, said Andrew Alford, president of Nexstar's broadcasting division, continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public's interest at the current time, and we have made the difficult decision to preempt his show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward the resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. The bottom line is what it really came down to. Local affiliate channels started catching heat from advertisers, viewers, and communities, and the decision had to be made. Do they ride it out and see what happens, or do they take immediate action and pull the show? But that didn't stop some in the mainstream media from jumping right back into defense mode for Jimmy Kimmel. Check it out.
What we've heard some other liberals say in recent days, that the motives are unclear and that maybe the suspect in this case was a Republican or was some sort of far-right fringe figure. Of course, there has been a lot of discussion about that in recent days. There's a lot of evidence pointing in other directions about the suspect. But Kimmel was on the air talking about this, making a very serious commentary amid his jokes in his monologue Monday night. Here's where it became interesting earlier today. The FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, went on a far-right webcast and condemned Kimmel and urged ABC to suspend him. He also talked about possible regulatory punishments of Disney because there are lots of different stations that have licenses with the FCC. Within the past hour, we've heard from a big owner of stations that have affiliations with ABC, a company called Nexstar, saying that they were going to suspend Kimmel's show on their station. So in other words, about 24 stations were refusing to air Kimmel's show tonight as a result of this controversy. And then, following word that some of those stations were basically revolting against Kimmel, Disney, the parent company of ABC, decided to yank the show entirely. So that's all we know at the moment. We know that Kimmel will not be on the air tonight or for the foreseeable future because the network says the show has been yanked off the air indefinitely.
Brian, just to take one issue, your interpretation of what Kimmel said, I think, is the one that Brendan Carr had and the one that the individuals at Nexstar have. But what he said specifically was, quote, "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." That can be read in several ways. That could be heard in several ways. It could also be it could also be argued he's saying that what the MAGA gang is doing is just trying to make sure that they don't have any ownership of it, not necessarily that this killer, this horrible person.
Well, it's absolute corruption of government, and it's absolute violation of the free speech rights of the people and of the media. And this is really taking us back to the days of King George, where it was a crime to insult the president.
Senator Schumer, your reaction to this?
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values. Trump and his allies seem to want to shut down speech that they don't like to hear. That is not what democracies do. That is what autocracies do. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Kimmel or not. He has the right to free speech. And so it is just outrageous. It is indicative of autocracy. And I am just outraged by it. Again, this is what dictators do. This is what Xi would do. This is what Putin would do. We are not that country.
We don't have to speculate about what comes next because President Trump in his televised speech after the assassination of Charlie Kirk and his aide Stephen Miller have already told us what is coming next. And they previewed it back in April. What is coming next is a crackdown on Democratic Party fundraising. That President Trump said we are going to go after those who raise funds for causes we don't like. Stephen Miller said that even more emphatically. In April of this past year, Donald Trump, at his personal command, ordered his Department of Justice, an astonishing thing for a president to do, to investigate the Democratic Party's small dollar donation platform, ActBlue. The attack on Democratic Party fundraising is coming next. The suppression of Democratic Party speech is coming next. Look,
Charlie Kirk is horrific. But the idea that someone is going to get pulled off a news program, off a channel that's supposed to be independent, and that ABC is making this decision because of possible political pressure through the president is both stunning and outrageous. And so I think that
of all things to be offended by, you know, I've heard a lot more offensive things said in the aftermath of this terrible, awful event than that. And it just shows they are looking for reasons to get Jimmy Kimmel, and they manufactured one out of something that is, you know, hardly a dramatic departure from what lots of people are saying.
I mean, I reached out to ABC earlier today to see if he was going to make some sort of statement because this thing was building heat.
Have you ever had a moment that changed your life? One accident, one employer who doesn't care, one hospital bill you couldn't pay. That's how quick life can change. And when it does, you realize something fast. The big companies, the insurance giants, they don't care about you. They've got teams of lawyers whose only job is to protect their bottom line. But who's protecting you? There's a reason why it feels like traffic always jams when you're running late. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan has fought for the people, not the powerful. With 1,000 plus attorneys and more than 100 offices nationwide, they've recovered over $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients just like you. Whether you're a 41-year-old family man in Florida, struck by a driver who ran a red light, Morgan & Morgan secured a $9.3 million verdict, or a father and Little League coach who suffered lasting injuries in a car crash, Morgan & Morgan secured a $6.1 million verdict. When you hire them, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. Starting a claim is simple. You can get started right now from your phone. No hassle. You can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to see if you have a claim. Their fee is free unless they win. Because when life changes in an instant, you deserve a law firm that's ready to fight for you. And so now this debate is being framed by those on the left as an attack on free speech. And they're calling for a boycott on ABC and anything ABC is affiliated with.
Boycott ABC. This is ridiculous. Jimmy Kimmel shouldn't have been taken off the air. They're just canceling anything they disagree with. They want to silence us. They want fascism to rule. We need to make our voices heard. We need to boycott ABC. We need to make sure they don't continue to cancel these people. What's next? South Park? SNL? The dissenting voices need to get really loud really quick. Demand they put him back on the air. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Our country is so out of control. Something's got to give. I can't wait for the pendulum to swing back. It's going to be such an incredible day.
So are we boycotting ABC? Because I am. They just fired Jimmy Kimmel. His show has been suspended indefinitely. Trump took to Truth Social, his little social media platform, and told ABC congratulations. And he also told them that they should also fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, I believe. But he was fired over his monologue in regards to Charlie Kirk. Monologue, he stated, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points." He also referred to Trump's grievance over Charlie Kirk's death as of a 4-year-old mourning the death of a goldfish, which I totally agree. ABC also avoids talking about Palestinians and Gaza, so it's really not surprising to me that they would fire Jimmy Kimmel over free speech on his own show because he's doing a monologue. And mind you, what he said really wasn't all that bad. I don't know about y'all, but hashtag boycott ABC, boycott Hulu, boycott Disney. Anything ABC needs to be boycotted. Anything associated with ABC needs to be boycotted.
Yeah, so like just don't watch Dancing with the Stars. Like no one watch it. Watch their ratings plummet after today and let them see. Just let them see. Do not fucking watch that show. I don't care how much you love it. Don't fucking watch it. One of my favorite shows, and I was so excited to come back, High Potential, not watching it. I'm so, like, I could cry. I feel like I'm living in North Korea.
This is what we need to do. We need to boycott ABC. You need to find the program that you watch. If you watch a show on ABC, call the advertisers. Tell them you aren't going to be watching the show anymore because you're boycotting ABC. And don't tell me that, but that's my favorite show. Get over it. Get over it. When your country is becoming an authoritarian Christian nationalist state, you have to do something. And I think this is the least you can do. All right? So let's get on that. And I want to remind everybody that there was a word that they called the people in Nazi Germany who just went along and got along to get along. They called them Nazis. If you aren't standing up to these fascist Gestapo tactics, you are one. Pick a side. It's time.
So let me get this straight. Jimmy Kimmel is being suspended indefinitely for comments that he made, right? In other words, you could say that Jimmy Kimmel is being suspended indefinitely for exercising his First Amendment right of freedom of speech. He is being persecuted by the powers that be for just speaking and having a difference of opinion. But I've been told for many, many years, and especially very recently, that I shouldn't be upset with when someone displays a difference of opinion, because they're just exercising their freedom of speech. So make it make sense. Which is it? Can you use your freedom of speech, or can you only use your freedom of speech if it suits a certain narrative? Can you express certain differences of opinion, but only if it supports a certain narrative? Make it make sense.
Let's put the emotion aside and deal with the facts. Do a quick Google search of Jimmy Kimmel's net worth and you'll realize real quick, he'll be okay. He's not losing his right to speak. His show's being suspended by a network that employs him, and that's an important distinction. He doesn't own the platform. He works for someone. And when they decided his words crossed the line, they have a contractual right to pull him. That's not about free speech and losing your First Amendment. That's the reality of working in media. And that's just the simple reality of working for someone else who signs your paycheck. And so you got people calling for the boycott, demanding action, and threatening to tune out altogether. But that's just one side. The bigger picture is how the public is reacting in real time. If you go through the comments on social media, it's split right down the middle, where you have some who are saying Kimmel is the victim here and that this is just cancel culture at work, ironically enough, while others are saying that the suspension is long overdue. Let's take a look at what people are actually saying online, because that's where you get the raw, unfiltered reaction. First, let's hear from people defending Jimmy Kimmel and who are calling for the boycott of ABC and anything ABC affiliated. Janet 1970 Forever says, just cancel Disney and Hulu. Grand 5 says, only the right can have freedom of speech and no one else as far as they are concerned, right? Jolene Smith says, free speech in the U.S. is dead. And Pumsky 2 says, it's only the beginning. Now, on the other side, plenty of people feel like the suspension is long overdue. And in no way is it a violation of someone's First Amendment right. Bronx Lakeisha writes, when Facebook and Twitter took Trump's, the U.S. sitting president at the time, free speech by suspending his accounts. Liberals say they're private companies and can make decisions on what they want or don't want on their platforms. Jimmy can start a podcast, same way Trump had to create Truth Social to talk to the American public. Mosca 2025 writes, they just needed a reason. Jimmy's ratings have been in the toilet for a long time. Jimmy was more of a political puppet in the last 10 years. Just there to validate the left's brainwashing agenda. Same as Colbert. And Colby writes, he definitely been losing ratings. And him making a statement that turned out to be false, as though it was the truth, was just the final straw. From a business point, this is what they had to do. If you're running Nexstar or Sinclair or any of these other major affiliate groups, you can't allow a late night show that comes on network television to spiral so far out of control into partisan politics that it alienates half of the country. The job of late night television has always been pretty simple. Give them a good laugh, entertain them before they go to bed. Once the focus shifts from humor to an all-out political obsession, the risk isn't just to the show. It's to the credibility of the network and ultimately to that company's profits. And this isn't anything new. There was a time when people could tune into sports, comedy, entertainment without being dragged into political debates. You could watch a football game, you could watch an NBA broadcast, you could tune into late night. And it was about the product itself, not about what your host or your favorite athlete stood on their thoughts of the president. But that era is long gone now. And what we're seeing with this decision is the consequences of chasing politics instead of protecting the core of the brand. And so with that being said, Sinclair, they're saying the suspension is not enough and calls on FCC and ABC to take additional action. Sinclair's ABC station to air special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during Jimmy Kimmel time slot on Friday. The statement goes on to say Sinclair, the nation's largest ABC affiliate group, objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the assassination of Charlie Kirk. As discussed with ABC, early today, Sinclair decided to indefinitely preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live, beginning tonight. Following these discussions, ABC has suspended production of Jimmy Kimmel Live. Mr. Kimmel's remarks were inappropriate and deeply insensitive at a critical moment for our country, says Vice Chairperson Jason Smith. We believe broadcasters have a responsibility to educate and elevate respectful, constructive dialogue in our communities. We appreciate FCC Chairman Carr's remarks today, and this incident highlights the critical need for the FCC to take immediate regulatory action to address control held over local broadcasters by the big national networks. Sinclair's ABC stations will air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk this Friday during Jimmy Kimmel's live time slot. The special will also air across all Sinclair stations this weekend. In addition, Sinclair is offering the special to all ABC affiliates across the country. Sinclair will not lift the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel Live on our stations until formal discussions are held with ABC regarding the network's commitment to professionalism and accountability. Sinclair also calls upon Mr. Kimmel to issue a direct apology to the Kirk family. Furthermore, we ask Jimmy Kimmel to make a meaningful personal donation to the Kirk family and Turning Point USA. Regardless of ABC's plan for the future of the program, Sinclair intends not to return Jimmy Kimmel Live to our air until we are confident the appropriate steps have been taken to uphold the standards expected of a national broadcast platform. And this is the reality that a lot of people forget. When you work for a company and it has its own brand, its own value, its own bottom line to project, you're there to do a job. Your personal beliefs are your own. But once those beliefs spill over and jeopardize the business, the company is going to act. We've seen this happen to people across different industries, and Jimmy Kimmel isn't an exception. This is just what happens when the lines get blurred. In the end, the brand always comes first. Anyway, guys, as always, I appreciate when you guys take the time to tune in. If you enjoy any part of the content, smash the like button for more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.